because it is Suicide Awareness Month.
Yep.
And was there something else?
Suicide Prevention Awareness Prevention Month. And in addition to that, September kicks off, unfortunately for clients, but seasonal depression. So September has a double dose in the mental health field. As the season and the weather begins to change, feelings also change as well. So this month, therapists across the world are highlighting the importance of the warning signs of suicide, in addition to making sure we're keeping our inner man good, because seasonal depression can creep up on us.
You know what? That's interesting you say that, because it's like the seasons are changing right now. I don't know. I've been more educated about mental health from being around you.
Mhm.
It's a subject that I did not take as serious, or I didn't think was a big deal. But being around you, I've learned a lot, and I've learned to take it way more serious than before. But do they know exactly what it may be that during this time frame that people feel that way, or those moments happen?
Yes, because we got less sunlight. Sunlight gives us vitamin D. Vitamin D gives us energy and makes us happy. And so when the sun is not out as much and we've got cloudy days like we have now, people will go into a shell. We're not outdoors as much. And that lack of vitamin D contributes to depression. Therefore, when people are down and out and they're depressed, and we say, hey, go spend some time at the beach, go sit outside, that's a part of that you get vitamin D. It's a natural remedy to depression.
That is amazing. That's a mic drop. I didn't even know that. It's something like depression can feel so complicated, but it may be something little to resolve that issue. And, while you were talking, and of course, I like talking about financial literacy and being able to grow wealth, it made me think that's why I need to improve my financial situation, because when seasons change, I figured it out. I need a vacation house that I can go to with the sun for about 6 months. That's all.
6 months out of the year.
And have enough money coming in where I can just hang out there for 6 months till the sun comes back, or whatever the case may be. So that's interesting as we talk about that. And I do want to talk about your occupation as a clinical therapist. I know we can jump around to different subjects, especially as far as ministry, but I'll try to do my best and focus on entrepreneurship and the fact of your.
I'm used to working with clients that flip back and forth.
Okay, good.
So depending on who you need me to be.
Okay, cool. So let me start here. Let me look I have a list of things on here, and we'll just go through them. 1, what is a clinical therapist?
A clinical therapist, in my personal definition, is a hope pusher, somebody that pushes hope. But the scientific definition would be more of a person that sees a client, they give a assessment, they come up with the diagnosis, and then they provide effective strategies to heal whatever the issue may be. That's it in a nutshell. But that comes in various types. You got social workers that serve as clinical therapists. You have licensed professional counselors. There are a variety of professions that fall up under that scope. You have psychologists that can double as therapists. But me personally, I fall under the licensed professional counselor status. And so what we do is just walk alongside clients in hopes that whatever the issue is, we walk alongside to bring you into a place of healing. I can tell you what a professional counselor is not, or a clinical therapist is not.
That'll be good too.
We are not advice givers. We don't tell you what to do with your life. You are the subject matter expert when it comes to your own life. Our job is to give you different perspectives, be able to get you to see your situation from more than one angle, and then help you choose the best solution for living.
It's more like I will open your mind about different options and allow you to see what each door will bring.
Right. And if I can give another example, Coach Steele, it would be, imagine at the end of a holiday season, you take your Christmas lights off the tree and you take them and you put them into a box. You don't really think about that box until you need it again. So the next holiday season rolls around, You open up this box and the lights are all tangled up. They
Yes.
still work,
Mhm.
but they're tangled. And so therefore, a clinical therapist will come in and help you, quote unquote, untangle your lights.
Mm.
Our job is to get them, we spread them out, we figure out the best way to work it. And as much as a therapist would want to jump in and grab the lights from you and untangle it, my job is to simply watch you work through the untangling, help you to see where you can make this thing work. Then we plug those lights in and help you to realize it was tangled up, but they still work. And that's the clinical work in a nutshell.
Well, I don't like untangling them Christmas lights by myself because I think about, like, normally when I would tangle them. Ooh, this is interesting. Normally, like when I put the lights up, I try to put them up in a way to where they're not
Right.
as tangled when I come back to get them. And I guess that's why therapy is so important, because it shows you how to put things back into maybe those light boxes or those places, whether it's different seasons, how to place everything so that they don't get so tangled when you have to pick them back up.
Right, exactly. And so it's a beautiful work. People sit there and they sometimes come in and say, oh, this is hopeless, throw the box away.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just start all over again. But my
Mm.
job is to let you know, we can work with what we have. And it's just a beautiful experience in the counseling room when we're able to see people go from hopeless situations to walking again in a freedom that they hadn't experienced before.
Okay. Now, when it comes to clinical therapy,
Mhm.
what made you choose this occupation? Out of everything you could have chosen in the world, why would you want to listen to people's
This is
problems?
a great question because I did not choose this field.
Well,
I tell people all the time that I believe it chose me. I was minding my own business. I was good.
Mhm.
But what happened is that I was seeing a lot of people in my own counseling room, and they would come in with issues, and we would talk about the scriptures. We would pray. We would fast. And I found out after a while that something else was behind the spiritual wall.
Mhm.
After we've called on the name of Jesus, and I believe when you call on his name, let me put this disclaimer out, that he can and will answer prayer. But I found that every time I was in the room, I'd hit a brick wall. And so when the scriptures didn't work anymore and the prayer was not working and people were spirit filled and going to church and still not seeing results, I knew it was something on the other side of that. And so I said, hey, I just need to pick up another skill set to be able to further help people in the spiritual room. And so then within a couple of weeks, I was enrolled in school, and I didn't really have a desire to be a counselor at that point. I was just trying to find skills to help people. And so that's how I ended up with the job that would have everybody telling me their life story and listening to problems all day long and issues. But I guess I have to be a little, whatever the word is, I can't find it right now, but to actually enjoy the work. I really do.
It's interesting because, once again, everybody knows I like talking about financial literacy, entrepreneurship. One of the keys to growing your own business or having financial success is if you can find a way to help people. I do know this. One thing I know for sure, the money will come.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities will present itself if you can find a need to help people. And so, in a sense, you found your own
niche.
There we go. She found her own niche. And so it's interesting when you do find that niche. So those that are out there that are listening, some of the ways and opportunities to make money will simply be the things you're probably already doing. And so one of the things that she did was went and educated herself and went and got degree certification so that certain things are official and gives her the freedom to operate and do it even at a higher level. So that's the pretty interesting thing. And for some people out there, if you're in the chat section, write some of the things that you find yourself doing. How do you help people on a day-to-day basis? What do people come to you for? Write that in the chat section. The question I have is, how can an individual take action in this month to help prevent suicide?
We got to talk about it. It's one of those myths and things that we don't want to discuss, but we know our family members, when they're not in their normal space. it's good to just ask the questions. Hey, are you okay mentally? Have you thought about harming yourself? And it's not until we open up Pandora's box that we really get some good answers. We believe that avoidance is the best thing. If I don't talk about it, then it's not real. But it is okay to literally ask the question, are you okay? You don't plan on harming yourself, do you? To open up the dialogue, and not only that, in opening the dialogue, but also sharing stories in some way, some form or fashion. All of us have been impacted by suicide. Even if it's not your family members, somebody in your community that's been impacted. When they go through and they're having their memorial walks, you can get in on those type things. When they're having scholarships in honor of their loved one, we can donate to those things, but we need to bring it to the forefront because suicide is plaguing our community really bad right now. Between the ages of 18 and 24, we've got the highest rate of suicide. And so that's our young adult, not limited to that area, but that's where the most of suicides are happening right now. So we got to open up. We got to talk to our children, talk to your grandchildren, and do some mental health checks. And that kind of helps with bringing some awareness and shedding light on what's happening.
Ooh, that's tough. 18 to 24, that is literally our future.
Yes.
And so when we look at the fact that it's our future is actually killing themselves.
Yes.
And so you're right. We do have to talk about it. Oh, yes.
And I forgot one thing. And finance is one of the number one reasons, because they're living in such a hard economic time right now where rent is sky high. Parents are saying, hey, you got to go get out and live on your own. They're trying to do this, but sometimes that whole process can be so overwhelming. They'll feel like the only option I have is to take myself out. And so as you sit and you have these conversations about finance, it's important because it can help some young person not just live a better financial life, but live, period, when they see, wow, it's another way for me to make money. There is hope. I can pull myself together. I can take care of myself financially. And so we see how finance and suicide can even have a correlation, and why it's important for us to be having this conversation.
To prevent suicide, like, what are we looking for? What are we paying attention to? Whether it's signs, whether it's something that people are saying or doing, what are some of those things we can catch?
Suicide symptoms often mirror major depressive disorder. When people start disconnecting from friends, no longer want to hang out, no longer want to be in the same social circles, when people start giving their stuff away and they start giving away things that are precious to them, that's another warning sign. And sometimes another warning sign is people will talk about it. I don't want to be here anymore. But we'll overlook it as if it's just a minor thing. Those are some of the things you really have to be on the lookout for when it comes to people that may be on the brink of harming themselves.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to try to role play, but I don't think I'm going to do it.
You can role play.
I don't know. Okay, Let me see. I wrote two things.
We can role play. We can give a scenario. Somebody that.
Pastor Conyers, well, when you're a clinical therapist, what do they call you? How do they address you?
Some of them call me Dr. Conyers, although I'm not a doctor, but it's Miss Conyers or Christy.
Okay. Miss Conyers, Mrs. Conyers, I feel stressed. I feel like there's a lot of weight on my shoulders. I get up in the morning and it just feels like there's so much that I have to do, but it's almost impossible to get it done.
Yeah, it's not strange to feel overwhelmed, especially when you have a lot of responsibilities.
But what if I do have a lot of responsibilities, but I don't even want them? Like, sometimes I just feel like I could just quit on those responsibilities and do something else, because I don't want to do what I do right now. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. I just rather give up.
All right. Well, giving up is an option, but if you give up, then we have to say, are you ready to face the consequences that come with giving up?
Giving up sounds peaceful.
Giving up as in your career or giving up on life? Career. Yeah. Well, that's what we're here for too, as therapists, to help you through career development. to help you find and search for something new. Not just what you want to do, but what brings you joy.
Can we give her a hand clap, y'all? Can we?
He's saying, time out, wait a minute.
No, what I like about it is you ask the hard question. What are we talking about? Are we talking about giving up on life? Or are we giving up on career? And it makes a big difference because at that point, now we're deciding, is this person potentially going to harm themselves, or are they just going through something that's not as dangerous as suicide?
Right. Well, most clients that I've dealt with, Coach Steele, that have been suicidal, there's no beating around the bush. They'll come and say, hey, I've been having suicidal thoughts. What is happening to me? And I'll tell you, all that are viewing, it's more common than not to have those thoughts. Where we come in as therapists is making sure you don't have a plan to carry it out. People think about suicide every single day, and it's not uncommon for you to do that. But we walk through it. We talk about it. I don't say, well, don't do that. No, tell me why you're feeling that way. What has you so overwhelmed that you feel taking your life is the only possible option? And so we'll walk through those things. Now it shifts if a person comes and tells me, hey, I'm feeling suicidal. I'm having ideations. I'm having thoughts. And this is my plan. So my clients know immediately, if you tell me that you are going to hurt yourself and you have a plan, then my whole job shifts. We're no longer talking at that point. My job as a mandated reporter is to get help. But people have suicidal thoughts all day. But we can walk through it and work through those things. And it's much more common than not. You'd be surprised.
Like, what are some of those things that can be said that will cause you in your profession to say, okay, now we need to.
If they say, hey, I have medicine at home, and when I leave you, I'm going to take the medicine. I have a weapon in my room. After I leave therapy, this is what I'm going to do. I plan to go walk out of this building and just jump out in front of traffic. I'm going to a bridge and I'm going to jump. If they give you a detailed plan on what is happening, then we shift from counseling. I'm no longer trying to push hope at that point. I'm trying to get help. And so that's when we have to call in the people that be and then take action. Other than that, talking about suicide is safe. And I think that's a myth that a lot of people don't trust. They say, if I tell my therapist that I'm thinking about killing myself, I'm immediately going to have to go to a mental institution. Not true at all. It's something that can be discussed as long as it's just a thought.
You know, I didn't even know that. So yeah, you just opened my eyes up to that. And probably a lot of other people, because especially soldiers, I used to be in the military. If we say that we have the thought process of suicide or whatever the case may be, the average person probably doesn't know that you can talk about it without like the 911 call happening or whatever. It takes saying the actual action or going deeper into that for further action to happen. So that's good information to know. And you articulated way better than I did just now. But
and especially mothers. That's one area that's really reluctant because they don't want to lose their children. And so they think that if I come in here and I talk about suicide, then I may lose my children.
One of the comments from Tony Sherman, he said, I had a plan to kill myself in 1987, but my battle buddy in the Army
unit talked me through the
problem. And so that's what we're talking about, being able to talk to someone effectively and being able to help them through the process. And I appreciate you being very open and honest and sharing that information, Tony. And Tony Sherman is another individual. When we talk about financial literacy, he is debt-free as well.
Yes.
And so it's pretty awesome with the fact of 1987 to now, he is living his best life. And so whatever he felt mentally in that moment in 87 was just a moment. And now when we look at 2024, I'm so glad that he didn't do what he was thinking to do, because we have to realize those thoughts and those emotions and those feelings, don't dictate and determine what the rest of your life is going to be and the potential and the promise you have in the future.
And as a therapist, that's where we come in. It's interesting that you know that Elder Steele with Mr. Sherman's situation from 87 to now. But as a therapist, I don't even go that far. When somebody says, hey, this is what I want to do, I take them to the day after. Sometimes we try to push it. Well, what about 10 years from now? They can't see that far when you're suicidal. You don't even have the cognitive ability to go that far, but 24 hours they can work with. So if you kill yourself today, have you thought about tomorrow? What does tomorrow look like for your family? What does tomorrow look like for your mom having to identify you? What does tomorrow look like for somebody having to walk into their home and find you? What does tomorrow look like for your children? And so when I can get them to see tomorrow, just one day ahead, and what that looks like for everybody connected and tied to them, sometimes that's enough to disrupt the mental process of carrying out a suicide.
Definitely. And with us talking about financial literacy, you know, not to say that this is the only reason why you shouldn't commit suicide, but it does have financial impact and effect on your loved ones, your circle of people, especially if, you know, if you're anybody, one, whether you're a breadwinner, two, you know, funerals aren't, you know, they cost, but some certain people, the mental health effects it can have on your loved ones, how does it affect their ability to go to work? How does it affect their ability to function and the financial impacts it may have on them as well? What would you say is your theoretical orientation to counseling, to therapy? And hold on, I want to cross my leg on that.
My theoretical orientation, I didn't know he was going to go all scientific on me, but I believe, well, for those of you that don't know, theoretical orientation is just what is my counseling approach? What is the way that I go forward with counseling? And I would have to say two are my primary. The first one would be cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
Watching and making assessments on why people do what they do and getting to the root of it. Because nobody does anything happenstance. All of our behaviors, just like you crossing your legs right now, are for a reason. But I won't make an assessment on him because I'm not here to do that today. But I love digging into it. There we go. Why people do what they do. What makes you tick. And how to make sure those behaviors are really reflecting what's going on cognitively. And so cognitive behavior therapy is my first one. And I would have to say my second, although in the beginning I was against this, but as I've come through as a therapist, solution-focused therapy. Sometimes people are just coming in and we can get this done real quick and you can do 6 weeks of therapy and we can be done. That doesn't apply to all situations because some people come in with layers of issues that require years of therapy. But I've kind of come to a point now in my counseling career where I can tell the difference. Oh, this person just needs 6 to 8 weeks. We can hit it real hard and then they're gone. Solution-focused therapy. But cognitive behavior therapy would be my theoretical approach and orientation to counseling.
I just want to give you this mango. I want to give you a mango this morning.
I requested when people host their show, they say, is there anything that you need? And I said, I would like to get a mango from Jamaica. And here we are. I got my mango. Ask. And it shall be given.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just want to make sure that as my guests come on, that I get them the things that they request.
Mexico.
Yeah, that one came from Mexico. So it was close, but not quite Jamaica.
Oh, gosh.
You know. Okay. Anyway, where were we? Okay, so how do you believe how can people develop equanimity during stressful situations?
Can you define?
I can't hear you.
Can you define?
Oh, yeah. The pettiness of it all.
Yeah, very petty. That's my next therapist shirt.
Yeah.
My therapist said I could be petty.
Okay.
Continue.
What does your shirt say right now? My therapist said feelings are not facts. Ooh. That's deep.
Back to your question.
Okay. Because some people be thinking that their feelings
Are
are
facts.
facts,
Mhm.
and they'll hold on to that.
No,
Okay,
we'll get back to that.
equanimity
Mhm.
is even-mindedness under stress. So you got a lot of stress, but how do you keep even-mindedness, even keel? How do you maintain during stressful moments?
Me personally or for clients? Overall?
I'll say for overall.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about balance. You can't work. He threw out a big word. It's okay, but you can't overwork yourself. You have to maintain a sense of balance, especially people who are highly career driven and working 12 hours a day trying to get something done, but they have no leisure time. They don't go out to parks. They don't do anything that they enjoy. Everything is always work, work, work. And so then it throws off our chemical imbalance, number one, because we're not putting rest and leisure a part of the recipe for living. And so then if we don't do those things, we'll find ourselves experiencing anxiety, depression, can't sleep at night, and all these other things because we lack balance. I tell people all the time, one of the easiest parts of therapy is, hey, what do you like to do for leisure? What do you do for fun? Tell me about your recreation. Tell me what you do outside of who you are labeled on your job. Most times people can't answer it. Once we can bring some balance to the situation, then people fare off a lot better.
My next question.
Is it a big word?
My question is, are you currently thinking of a big word to
yes,
use right
now? 5 syllables to be exact.
Okay.
And I got one in the chamber.
Jeez. Okay. All right.
So first of all, you have to have a bachelor's degree, not necessarily in psychology, but you do have to go in with having the bachelor's.
Okay.
Then you have to go in to get your master's degree. I went to Liberty University, and it was a 60-hour program. Let's start there because most masters are nowhere near that. That's like double the time. And so you got to complete 60 hours there. Once you complete your 60 hours in your master's program, you take a comprehensive exam. For Liberty, it was called the CPCE. If you get 3 chances to pass this exam, which was a comprehensive test over what you learned over the 60 hours, you did not pass it, you had to settle for a Master's of Human Resources. So that's a test you have to pass. Once you have to pass the university's test, then you take a national test. For me, it was the National Counselor Examination, the NCE, which was a 4-hour exam. Praise God, I passed it on the first try because I probably wouldn't have wanted to go back a second time. But you pass the NCE. After you pass the NCE, you are required to do 3,000 hours of clinical counseling and 36 hours a year for 3 years of clinical supervision before you can work independently. And most people, that 3,000 hours is not paid. Financial woes, yes. But that's the education process in a nutshell to be able to get to being a licensed counselor.
So, my goodness. One of the things you mentioned earlier, you said to be able to operate and function independently, there's certain things that you had to do. What made you want to do those things? Because we're talking about entrepreneurship today and financial literacy. What made you want to jump through those hoops and do those things so that you could operate independently?
Well, money was a big motivator because when you work under another clinician and you're working within their office, I mean, they can pay you an hourly rate. Number one, you have no overhead. So you're not paying rent. You're not having to file claims. You're not having to have a billing person. You're not paying utilities to run a business, all of the things that come in with being independent. So they'll pay you a minimal amount, which at the time I had an offer of $17 an hour. Now I told you I had 3 years.
I wasn't going to jump into your numbers.
Okay, 3 years of school, 2 years of school, 3 years of supervision. And so a $17 an hour offer just didn't sit right with me. I mean, under no circumstances. And so when you move from that versus being able to charge your worth independently, I always knew that private practice was going to be my goal. Now, it comes with its own set of finances, but you still fare out better in the long run versus working under something. Nothing wrong with it. For those that have to do it, it's absolutely fine. If you find you a good spot with a counselor that understands and they're willing to do 60-40, sometimes 70-30, that's a pretty good deal when you're working under someone else. But when you can work independently and get 100%, I just thought that was the best deal for me. So I always knew that working independently in this field was my goal.
That is so good, especially with what we talk about here at Coach Steele's Finance Training. If you're tuning in, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. I'm on YouTube Live, Coach Steele's Finance Training. We're also live on Facebook, so make sure you share this with someone. This is a conversation about mental health as well. So make sure that you're listening, you're paying attention, and you're taking notes. This is great information that we have today, kind of merging two major important topics.
Right.
And you brought so much awareness to us today, even with the fact of financial problems are another main issue, a reason why people are committing suicide.
Right.
So I do like this merge in conversation. And so when we talk about a merge in conversation, and this might be my last one, how do you think you handle the confluence of your different hats and being able to make them work together?
Well, I think I know what confluence means. I can use context clues to figure that out. But I had to really learn how to separate, compartmentalize some of these things that were happening, because I never really get away from counseling. You know, I leave a clinical setting and then I go into a spiritual setting. And in the very beginning, when the load became too much, one of the things in school that they didn't really teach you is how do you keep it separate? How do you put this to the side and not take it home with you? And I struggled with that really bad. As my first setting, I work with children. Well, you know, I was a youth pastor, so children were my heart. So to see some of these kids come in with some of the issues that they had was absolutely overwhelming. I would tell you, I did not do good at all. You're going to make me tell the people my business on this morning.
Tell the people your business.
I used to leave my clinical internship at that time. I was in Savannah. So I had an hour drive to decompress. But I would like play Tupac and like turn it up real loud because I needed something that was, I guess it was just the wretchedness that would take away the feelings of being overwhelmed from having to deal with kids who were under bad situations. But I quickly realized Tupac wasn't the answer. Like I couldn't just do that every day, coming home, blasting it down 95, California Love, and just bopping, because when I turned Tupac off, I still had to deal with the feelings. So it was just an escape. And as I learned as a therapist, I was doing what you would recommend other people not do. Deal with the feeling, work through it, and then figure out how do I get this to be. I'm just a conduit. I'm not the person that absorbs everything. You can observe and not absorb, as a sponge. And so I had to learn how to take it in as a sponge, and at the end of the day, how to rinse it out without making substitutions. And so I had to learn how to sit in feelings. I had to learn how to process myself. I had to learn how to get people that I could talk to as a therapist when some of those situations became overwhelming, because Tupac was going to take me down the wrong road. And I couldn't be the best effective therapist that I needed to be by substituting feelings. And we see that in the field a lot. We will substitute music. We will substitute with food for feelings. And I had to learn how to sit in it and process it, and not to flip back on this side. But prayer was the key to doing that too. Because I had to give it to somebody who was designed to carry it. And so now I'm praying before my counseling sessions. When my sessions are over, I do pray for my clients, and I give it back to God so that I don't walk out of the counseling space carrying all these things home with me.
Yeah, I agree, because hit 'em up is not going to really get you ready for the next counseling session or when you get home to your family.
And,
you know. And you get to decide when you get a raise. You get to decide when you promote yourself. You get to decide how many hours you put in, how many hours you don't have to put in. And another good thing is, as a self-employed individual, entrepreneur, you can eventually build a team, and you have your own brand. and information and things like that. And let me see, without messing anything up, let me see if I can show y'all an example of the brand. And let's see. All right, let me make sure I go to the right spot. And that might be it right there.
Yes, that's it.
And I wish I could make it a little bit bigger, but I can't. But what does that say?
The Bridge Integrative Solutions. And so that bridge is my brand, because my job is to get you from here to there. And how do we do that? Sometimes it's like crossing a bridge. I remember my grandmother said, we'll do this tomorrow, God willing, and the creek don't rise. Well, they didn't have a bridge to get over. And that was a part of me developing this logo and brand for the business, so that people could have a visual of what it looks like to start at one point and end at another. And I serve as the bridge to get you where you need to be.
I think that's awesome. And I didn't plan for it to be right down in smack dab in the middle of us like that, but it worked out great. So it looked like I knew what I was doing. But that's definitely beautiful that you do have that brand. And I want to come back to that brand in a second, but you mentioned some important things earlier. And one of my questions was, how did COVID affect mental health, the business of mental health? And you actually named, my part two of that question was the certain age and range. You mentioned about how suicide has affected 18 to 24. But how did COVID affect the business of mental health?
My Lord, COVID, as terrible as it was great for mental health business. In March of 2020, the first week was my first session when I founded Grace Counseling Services, which was an in-house mental health at the church. And we had our first client that week. And then 2 weeks later, we had the mandate come across that everybody was going to be on lockdown. We were quarantined, shut in. And so we could no longer see people in person. Immediately, all of the counselors like, what are we going to do? We switched over to Zoom,
my goodness,
FaceTime, Google Duo at the time, Google Meet. And then the state came down and said, no, that's not acceptable because it's not secure. Not everybody wants to make money. So we had to switch to platforms that had been approved by the state in order to see people. But business boomed because number one, everybody was anxious. Nobody knew how to deal with COVID. And here we are as mental health therapists, not knowing anything about COVID ourselves, trying to help people through a pandemic when we were under stress ourselves. But business went up. If they weren't going through anxiety issues, people started going through depression. Why? Because now they're in the house. We can't get out. I'm disconnected from friends. I can't go see my family. No sun at all. I can't get outdoors anymore. What do you mean I can't go anywhere? People couldn't do the things they loved anymore. Sporting events, concerts, venues, you name it. Everything was shut down. But it was good for clinicians. It got so bad at one point, Coach Steele, that the government had to come up with this compact plan that people would be able to counsel across state lines. They had to provide what you call reciprocity for licensure. And so not only could I practice in Georgia, I could practice 5 syllables. I could practice across 11 states that decided to come in because we had more people needing help than therapists that could meet the demand. And so that compact had to come in place then. So COVID was great for mental health, but it did change the way in which we had to serve people. I don't like telehealth, even though I do offer it. It's nothing like being in the room with somebody versus having to see them on a computer screen. And so that was another facet. I have been fortunate not to have to spend a dime in marketing for the Bridge, nor any of my counseling services. Good service has paid off. So all of my clientele, 90%, I would have to say, is by word of mouth. My clients go and tell their friends how great their therapist is, and then I get a phone call from friends or family. And that's how we've been in operation. And then I've had a chance to work with some really great people here in Hinesville. And so when there's certain areas that people are searching for, colleagues will make recommendations. Other pastors make recommendations. So I'm in a few networks that really keep me full. And I haven't had to do much marketing at all. I do have a Facebook page that's set up, but not in a sense where I'm having to go out and pay. We have sites like Psychology Today, Black Girl Therapy, where you can go in and get put in a database to appear in the local area. But I haven't had to do any of that. So I've been fortunate that I don't have to market because my clients are great about making recommendations just through the service.
So currently right now, ladies and gentlemen, the bridge is full. But the beautiful thing is when you provide good quality service, word of mouth is the best marketing and advertising you can have. Yeah. Are you okay?
I'm all right.
So
explain to the people.
Well, I figured you like plantains.
Yeah.
No, you said good.
Those of you that are just tuning in, this is a commercial break. He went all the way to Dominican Republic to bring me back a plantain. Thank you, sir. And a mango from Mexico.
So yeah, when I asked her what she needed for the show, because I wanted to make sure she was comfortable, she mentioned Jamaica and some Belgian waffles and plantains from Jamaica and other things. And so I just did the best that I could today. So that's why she's being showered with these random tropical gifts.
Okay.
You say are some things people can do to get the most out of therapy.
Come to your therapy sessions with a plan. Like, don't spend $90 to $150 for an hour, and your therapist say, "Hey, what do we want to do today? What do we want to talk about?" And you're like, "Oh, whatever you want to talk about." No, you are paying for a service. It is your session. Come in with a plan. I love when my clients bring their journals and their notebooks, and it is full. They come in saying, "Ms. Conyers, this is what I want to cover today. This is what happened this week." I even have my clients keep a notebook by their nightstand. And so when they think about something, they can write it down and have some substance to bring to their sessions. I think it's such a waste to come to your sessions and you have absolutely nothing to say. And you expect your therapist to give dissertations and to tell you what to do. No, our job is to take what you have and let us work through those things with you. So definitely journal, coming in with the plan, and challenge your therapist. Therapists, we get kind of caught up sometimes in the mundane of saying the same thing over and over again, but challenge your therapist. Come in, look up, you got Google at your fingertips. Like you asked me, ask your therapist, what is your theoretical orientation? What is your approach toward therapy? And although we're not the clients in the room, we are there to work for you. Find you a therapist that gives you homework. That means they care about what's happening in between your sessions, and make sure you're doing your part to get the most out of therapy. Another thing I tell my clients, Elder Steele, the minute I start working harder than them in the room, we're already out of balance. My job is not to work harder than harder than the client. The client has to do the hard work if they want to change and be better.
Part 2 question. As a therapist, what do you feel your strengths are? Are there like certain mental health topics, or not topics, but fields or issues? Like, what are your strengths as a therapist?
Number one would be what makes me stand out from the average therapist is that I integrate spirituality into the room for those clients that choose to do that. A lot of therapists will stray away from it. They don't want to touch it, but I'm not afraid to bring that part into the room if it's welcome. And when we bring in the spiritual and the clinical and they merge together, it's like fireworks that go off in the room, because I get to work as a healer from 2 aspects at one time. And so I know that is a great strength for me. Another area that I work well with is with women that are going through, parenting issues, women that are having trouble in their marriages. And that's another strength that I have. And I would have to say number 3 would be dealing with people that are suffering from anxiety, PTSD. I do pretty good in that area as well. I won't proclaim to be a specialist in any of them, but there are some areas that I glean more toward. And as a therapist, I'm also not afraid to say what I don't like. I don't like couples therapy. It is one of the most draining therapies ever when you have to deal with two people's point of views and then try to discover the truth, especially for couples that don't want to heal.
Mhm.
They just there because they checking the blocks because somebody made them come. That's what I don't like. And my most favorite, I almost forgot, is I love working with children and families, seeing the family unit healthy. But couples is my least favorite.
Interesting. And you get joy out of this.
Oh yeah.
And so earlier you said, people don't do things for no reason at all. Like it's my history, boom, poor, struggling, like to help other people. Do you feel like at one point when you were younger, like your family coming up, you saw a lot of mental health that wasn't healthy? I know you said ministry, it pushed you to that.
Right.
But do you think it's even further, like from when you were younger, being in certain environments and wanting to see mental health better on everyone else?
Oh yeah. I think it's safe for all of us to say that we've seen some interesting dynamics in families. And I often look back on that now that you asked me that, and it was some pretty chaotic stuff that was happening at one point in my life. And so then we didn't even get to go into this, but the inner child in me would wish I had a therapist like me. And so that's a part of the driving force, that if I had somebody like me when I was going through that most difficult period of growing up, then I can't even imagine where I would be now. The grace of God has gotten me here. But if I had a therapist like myself at a young age, it would have been a beautiful thing. So I would have to say that's a part of my motivation and what has also driven me not just to choose this per se, but to stay in it, because it is a very taxing profession. Master of Arts, licensed professional counselor.
Okay.
That's what the letters mean.
Okay. And
it just means that I did my due diligence and I know what I'm talking about.
And before that means it's official.
It's official.
It's certified.
It is.
And if you're just tuning in, we are here with Pastor Christy Conyers. And with Pastor Christy Conyers, she is talking about entrepreneurship. She's talking about mental health. It is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We're having an awesome conversation about the benefits of all of this stuff and using it in our lives. And so before I get to my last question, I do have, and let me take that off the screen real quick. I did have one more gift for you because I couldn't get the waffles, the Belgian waffles. So,
Anitra, where are you?
Why is your face like that?
There she is. Please help.
How many times do I have to tell you to fix
my face?
I gotta quit doing these surprise gifts. Okay, so this is the last one.
Oh,
okay, this is okay. It's exotic. I think it's called a dragonfly fruit.
It's not dragonfly, sir. Dragon fruit.
Yeah, that.
Keep the fly off. Dragonfly fruit. What?
Ooh.
Now you got me making assessments over here.
Okay. So yeah, you got all of that in place, and so I'm excited about all of this. One, I'm excited about what you do. I love the fact that you are self-employed, and I know that it can take what you do in your brand to a whole nother level. Thank you, Sean. I done embarrassed my wife. So
dragonfly fruit.
So goodness. Oh, they ain't gonna let me live that one down. So like with the bridge, it's called the bridge. So
integrative solutions.
Integrative solutions. Like that can go anywhere. I'm excited about it. And I see this bridge like growing. So more people will be able to get on the bridge. And because you're self-employed, you're not limited to being up under one house, under one roof, one umbrella, where you're limited on how many people you can reach. So with having your own brand, being self-employed, there's so many ways I can go with this, but I'll stay focused on this. Like where do you see the future of your business going, and like what plans do you have to grow the brand in the future?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I'll have to start by saying at some point I would like to have other therapists working where I'm not on the front lines in the counseling room doing the one-on-one work. So I look forward to future partnership. Aloha McGregor, if you're out there, we always talk about it, going into something together. Also, in addition to that, many pastors that I notice in the area, I've done a few workshops over the last couple of years, want to know, how do I bring this to my church? How do I bring awareness? So I want to be able to continue as a consultant to other pastors. If you're out there, if you are watching and your pastor wants to develop a counseling center, quote unquote, in their ministry, I want to be able to go and offer that service at a fee, hallelujah, to pastors to be able to implement this in their facilities. I want to be able to come in as a consultant and talk to leadership within churches to know how to look for the warning signs, when to be able to counsel to the best of your ability, but also to help pastors know when to pass this thing off. Sometimes we work with people too long as pastors when they need more than spiritual help. And so that's the consulting side that I hope to go into, helping other pastors and churches understand and implement mental health in their facilities. The other part is developing ebooks online for people to be able to go in and have journals accessible to them, not just on the internet, but also to be able to have printed material as well for my clients that come in that are gauged towards specific issues. I also plan to develop some adult coloring books, because coloring is one of those things that help with all of the issues that people come in to help them relax and unwind. And also having products on hand like the shirt I have on today. I'm working on My Therapist Said brand, which will consist of many different things. And I'm going to get Elder Steele one that said, My Therapist Said, because he liked to act up too much. That's going to be his shirt. Especially t-shirts, because it's so easy. People will go out and they will start the conversation. My therapist said, to make it and normalize having a therapist. We are not taboo. It is not something you should steer away from. You can very much be saved and have Jesus and have you a therapist. The scriptures even call him a wonderful counselor. If I'm made in the image of him, then I can walk as a counselor in the earth to help other people. So it's a grand setup. So many avenues and so many different ways and approaches that I plan to take the bridge. I'm excited about it and grateful for this opportunity to be able to share from an entrepreneurial perspective.
I like that. You said a lot of stuff that I like right there.
Yes.
Whether it's the consulting, whether it's building a team, and like building the journals and stuff like that. Do you think it's like possible to do? And you said for like different, like even tailoring it to a certain mental health issue. Is it possible to tailor like a mental health issue or journal for the year? Like,
yes,
the first, let's say it's January, and for 30 days or however it is, there's assignments for January all the way through.
Yes, very possible. Yeah. And that would be called more of a wellness type journal. So it won't be specific issues, but how do I stay well for 365 days out of the year? And as we talked about before, outside of this session, it only takes 21 days to form a habit. If I can get somebody just for 21 days to focus on their mental health, make sure they're taking care of themselves. As the stewardess says, put on your mask first, take care of you, so that you can take care of the other people. We can change the trajectory. Let me get that right. I have to deal with that later. Of mental health, and cause people to really be able to take an internal look at themselves and be the best possible version of you. Sometimes we so narrow-minded when it comes to our wellness. We don't think, just walk in and exercise to take care of the physical man. We go to church and Bible study to take care of the spirit man, but what do we do for our mental? Sometimes that's what we neglect. But as a therapist, I'm working on biopsychosocial awareness. so that we are always prepared to be the best possible selves that we can be. So that 6 or 7 syllables on that one. And so then when it comes to our finance and that type in the side of the house on the business, that I'm well rounded. I'm not so stuck in one area that I'm neglecting another.
I like all of that, and I can't wait. I'm excited about these different journals because now your client doesn't even have to go run around and try to find something to use, but you will have those tools in hand for them to use.
Yes.
People online, whether they are connected to you or having counseling sessions, let's say their counselor doesn't have that material for them, they can actually go online, purchase that product from the Bridge Integrative Solutions,
right,
and be able to use it in their sessions, whether it's with their therapist or whether they are on their own. I think it's awesome.
I would recommend every therapist to have a therapist. Sometimes we deal with some really heavy issues, and you can try to work it out yourself. And I know you're saying, well, if you're a therapist, you ought to be able to just help yourself. Sometimes when you're too close to the fire and you got too much input, and you're just too close to the situation, it can be hard for us to see as therapists ourselves. And so if I'm recommending that therapists get therapists, I recommend that everybody find you a good one. And can I talk about that for a second?
Yes, please do.
Make sure when you're on your search for a therapist that you find one that's culturally competent. Because if you don't, you can find yourself in a whirlwind. And if you and your therapist don't gel, then therapy is not going to be the best that it can be for you. Quick, funny story that we had in school. We had a case study where a young lady, African American, had gone into the hospital and she had a baby. Well, while she was in the hospital, a nurse kept writing in her notes that patient continues to tap herself in the top of the head continuously. Every time I walk into the room, the client is tapping her head, tapping. And so then she calls in the psychiatrist, she calls in the social worker, calls in a counselor, because she's saying something is wrong with this young lady in the hospital room, right? She's tapping her head, just had a baby. Most of y'all know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the social worker, which is also a therapist, was an African American woman that had come into the room and said, why are we here? Said, because she continuously taps. And they had written up this behavioral worksheet on her. And the lady said she got braids in her hair. She just had a baby. Her hair is itching.
This is good.
They were getting ready to actually provide a psychiatrist to come in and give this lady medication for continuously tapping the top of her head. And if there was not a culturally competent person in the room that understands us as a people, that she would have been labeled, she would have had a diagnosis that was incorrect. And it happens all too often. So that's my plea for y'all today. Seek a therapist, but if you do, make sure you're asking the questions. Ask them about their background. Ask them what they believe in. Make sure they understand you from a cultural aspect, because it can help your counseling experience.
Ooh, that was good. Pastor Conyers is in here dropping jewels. Like, if you ever had thoughts of counseling or therapy and needed help, or you have these different myths, she has bust like so many myths and different things that we wondered about counseling. And that story is a great example, because now I understand.
I got another one.
Oh, go ahead.
You in the counseling room with your counselor and you said, God told me so and so and so and so. I heard the Holy Spirit say so and so and so and so.
Yeah,
well, if they're not competent when it comes to religion, don't you know that your clinical note might read auditory hallucinations? And so here it is now. We're accustomed to saying, I heard the Spirit of the Lord say, God told me, and your counselor is over there writing, client has experienced auditory hallucinations. And now that's in your record that you're hallucinating, But our belief is we hear from God. So not only do they need to be culturally competent, they also need to be spiritually competent. And so you got to do some research. Don't go selecting a therapist haphazardly. Make sure they understand you as a person so that you don't